Maya Grant stood in the hallway, her $3,000 Louboutin heels clicking against the marble floor as she checked her phone. The security guard had just told her the CEO meeting was invite only, despite her name being on every acquisition document signed that morning. She watched through the glass doors as 20-something founders pitched their revolutionary app to a room full of investors, completely unaware that the woman they'd just excluded had already purchased their company for $127 million. Million. The irony wasn't lost on her, but what happened next would leave everyone speechless. Before we carry on, please hit the subscribe button to make my day, and let me know where you are watching from in the comments. The morning had started like any other for Maya Grant, CEO of Teknova Enterprises, one of Silicon Valley's most successful venture capital firms. At 42, she had built an empire from nothing, transforming a small tech consultancy into a billion-dollar powerhouse that had acquired 17 companies in the past 3 years. Her corner office on the 43rd floor overlooked the San Francisco Bay, where morning fog still clung to the water like silk scarves draped across a mirror. Maya's assistant, Jennifer, knocked softly on the mahogany door before entering with her usual efficiency. "The papers for the Cloud Sync acquisition are ready for your signature," she announced, placing a thick manila folder on Maya's glass desk. "The transfer should be complete by 10 this morning." Maya barely looked up from her laptop screen, where she was reviewing quarterly projections that showed Teknova's revenue had increased by 37% since January. "Excellent. Make sure Marcus knows we'll need the integration team ready by next week. This acquisition could revolutionize how small businesses manage their data storage." Cloud Sync had caught Maya's attention 6 months earlier, when their innovative cloud management platform began gaining traction among startups. The company's founder, Jake Rodriguez, was a 26-year-old Stanford dropout who had developed an algorithm that could predict storage needs with 93% accuracy. Maya had been quietly negotiating the purchase through intermediaries, preferring to keep her involvement confidential until the deal was finalized. She signed the documents with her Montblanc pen, each signature representing millions of dollars and hundreds of jobs that would now fall under Teknova's umbrella. The acquisition was strategic, filling a gap in their portfolio while eliminating a potential competitor. Maya had learned long ago that in Silicon Valley, you either grew or got consumed. "There's one more thing," Jennifer added, consulting her tablet. "The Northern California Venture Conference is today at the Fairmont. Several of our portfolio companies will be presenting, and Jake Rodriguez from CloudSync is giving a keynote on innovation in cloud computing." Maya raised an eyebrow. "He doesn't know about the acquisition yet?" "The lawyers were handling final notifications this morning. He should be informed within the hour." A smile played at the corners of Maya's lips. She had always enjoyed the moment when founders discovered their companies had new ownership, especially when they realized who their new boss actually was. "I think I'll attend. It might be interesting to see his presentation, knowing what I know." The Fairmont Hotel buzzed with the energy of hundreds of entrepreneurs, investors, and tech executives. Maya navigated through the crowds with practiced ease, her navy blue Armani suit and confident stride commanding attention without demanding it. She had learned to dress for success early in her career, understanding that in a male-dominated industry, appearance could either open doors or slam them shut. The main ballroom had been transformed into a showcase of innovation, with startups displaying their products on sleek white tables, while investors circulated like sharks sensing opportunity. Maya recognized several faces from previous conferences, nodding politely to competitors and potential partners, while keeping her true purpose hidden. Jake Rodriguez's presentation was scheduled for 11:30 in the Pacific Room, a smaller venue reserved for keynote speakers. Maya arrived early, wanting to observe the audience's reaction to someone who would soon be working for her. She approached the registration desk outside the room, where a young woman with a tablet was checking names against a guest list. "Maya Grant, Teknova Enterprises," she announced, extending her business card. The registration assistant, barely out of college with blonde highlights and perfectly applied makeup, looked at the card with confusion. "I don't see your name on the list for this session." Maya frowned. "There must be some mistake. I'm the CEO of Teknova. We're one of the conference sponsors." "I'm sorry, But this is an invite-only session for select CEOs and founders. Maybe you could try the General Wah networking event in the Marina Room? The dismissal stung, though Maya had experienced similar situations countless times throughout her career. She had learned to navigate these moments with grace, understanding that fighting every battle would exhaust her energy for more important wars. Could you check with someone? Perhaps there's been an administrative error. The assistant glanced around nervously, before spotting a security guard nearby. Marcus, could you help this lady find the appropriate session for her level? The security guard, a middle-aged white man with graying temples and a permanent scowl, approached with the authority of someone who had been dealing with conference crashers all morning. Ma'am, the CEO session is invite only. I'm going to have to ask you to move along. Maya felt the familiar burn of discrimination, the assumption that a black woman couldn't possibly belong in a room full of tech executives. She had fought these battles for 20 years, from her early days as a software engineer at Microsoft to her current position atop a billion-dollar empire. Sometimes she won through persistence, sometimes through legal channels, and sometimes she chose to let her success speak louder than words. I understand, she said calmly, tucking her business card back into her purse. I'll wait out here. The security guard seemed satisfied with her compliance, returning to his post near the entrance. Maya found a comfortable leather chair in the hallway outside the Pacific Room, close enough to hear fragments of conversation through the glass doors, but far enough to avoid further confrontation. She used the time productively, responding to emails and reviewing documents on her phone. A text message from her lawyer confirmed that the CloudSync acquisition had been finalized and all parties had been notified. Jake Rodriguez was now officially her employee, though he likely hadn't received the news yet, given that he was preparing for his presentation. Through the glass doors, Maya could see the room filling with familiar faces from the venture capital community. There was David Chen from Pacific Ventures, Sarah Williams from Golden Gate Capital, and at least a dozen other investors she had either collaborated with or competed against over the years. She recognized several startup founders as well, young entrepreneurs hungry for funding and validation. Jake Rodriguez entered the room at exactly 11:20, carrying a laptop bag and wearing a navy blazer over dark jeans. He was shorter than Maya had expected from his photos, with thick black hair and an easy smile that suggested confidence without arrogance. She had studied his background extensively during the acquisition process, learning about his immigrant parents who had worked double shifts to put him through Stanford, his brief stint at Google before starting CloudSync, and his reputation for treating employees like family. The presentation began promptly at 11:30. Maya could hear Jake's voice through the doors as he discussed the future of cloud computing, his passion evident in every word. He spoke about democratizing technology, making powerful tools accessible to small businesses that couldn't afford enterprise solutions. His vision aligned perfectly with Technova's mission, confirming Maya's decision to acquire his company. The key to sustainable growth, Jake was saying, his voice carrying through the glass, is understanding that innovation isn't just about creating something new, it's about solving real problems for real people. Maya nodded unconsciously, remembering her own journey from a cramped apartment in Oakland to the executive suite of a major corporation. She had started Technova with similar ideals, wanting to bridge the gap between cutting-edge technology and practical business applications. A commotion near the registration desk caught her attention. Jake's business partner, Alex Kim, was arguing with the same assistant who had turned Maya away earlier. His voice was rising with frustration as he gestured toward the closed doors. I'm the CTO of CloudSync, Alex was insisting. Jake Rodriguez is my co-founder. I should be in there supporting his presentation. The assistant maintained her position with robotic persistence. I'm sorry, but your name isn't on the invite list. The session is for CEOs only. Maya watched the familiar dance of exclusion play out, remembering countless similar scenarios from her own experience. She had learned that these gatekeepers often wielded their small amount of power with disproportionate authority, creating barriers that served no purpose beyond maintaining arbitrary hierarchies. Alex noticed Maya sitting in the hallway and approached with a mixture of curiosity and shared frustration. They won't let you in either? Apparently I'm not on the right list, Maya replied diplomatically. This is ridiculous, Alex muttered, running his hands through his black hair. Half the people in that room have never built anything. They just write checks and take credit for other people's innovations. Maya smiled at his assessment, which wasn't entirely inaccurate. You must be proud of your co-founder. CloudSync has an impressive reputation. Jake's brilliant, Alex said, his frustration giving way to genuine admiration. He could have taken a safe job anywhere, but he believed in building something that matters. We've been working 18-hour days for 3 years, sleeping on office couches and eating ramen noodles, but it's all been worth it. What? Success requires sacrifice, Maya agreed, thinking about her own journey from junior developer to CEO. The question is whether you're willing to make those sacrifices for the right reasons. Inside the conference room, Jake was fielding questions from the audience. Maya could see investors leaning forward in their chairs, clearly impressed by his responses. One venture capitalist was asking about CloudSync's expansion plans, while another inquired about their intellectual property portfolio. We believe in organic growth, Jake was explaining. We'd rather build sustainable partnerships than chase quick exits. Our goal is to create lasting value for our customers and employees. Maya almost laughed at the irony. Jake was discussing his company's independence while sitting in a room full of people who didn't know he had already been acquired. The timing was perfect theater, though entirely unintentional. Her phone buzzed with another message from Jennifer. Jake Rodriguez has been informed of the acquisition. He's requesting an urgent meeting with you this afternoon. Maya typed back quickly. Tell him I'll be available at 2 o'clock, conference room A. The presentation was reaching its conclusion, with Jake thanking the audience for their attention and inviting further discussions. Maya could see people beginning to stand and gather their belongings, the energy in the room shifting from focused attention to networking opportunities. The doors opened and conference attendees began filing out, many of them deep in conversation about what they had just heard. Maya remained seated, watching as investors and entrepreneurs mingled in the hallway, exchanging business cards and scheduling follow-up meetings. Jake emerged from the room looking energized but slightly overwhelmed, the natural result of delivering a high-stakes presentation to a room full of potential partners and competitors. He was immediately surrounded by people wanting to continue conversations, shake hands, and explore potential collaborations. Maya observed the scene with professional interest, noting how Jake handled each interaction with genuine enthusiasm while maintaining appropriate boundaries. He was clearly passionate about his work, but smart enough to avoid making commitments without proper consideration. Alex approached his co-founder with obvious relief. How did it go? Better than expected, Jake replied, loosening his tie slightly. At least 6 investors want to schedule meetings, and David Chen from Pacific Ventures thinks we'd be a perfect fit for their portfolio. Maya stood up slowly, smoothing her skirt and gathering her purse. The moment of revelation was approaching, and she wanted to position herself strategically for maximum impact. Jake was still talking to Alex when he noticed Maya rising from her chair in the hallway. His expression shifted from post-presentation euphoria to confusion as he processed the sight of a professionally dressed black woman who had apparently been waiting outside the session he had just completed. "Excuse me," he said to the investor he had been speaking with, taking a step toward Maya. "Were you trying to get into the presentation?" "I was," Maya replied calmly, "but apparently I wasn't on the right list." Jake's face flushed with embarrassment and anger. "That's completely unacceptable. You should have been able to attend any session at this conference." He turned toward the registration desk with obvious frustration. "Let me speak to someone about this." "That's not necessary," Maya said, her voice carrying an authority that made Jake pause. "I actually got exactly what I came for." Something in her tone made Jake study her more carefully. He was clearly trying to place her face, which seemed familiar but not immediately identifiable. "I'm sorry, have we met? You look familiar." Maya extended her hand with a slight smile. "Maya Grant, Tech Milva Enterprises." Jake's face went completely white as the name registered. He had heard it countless times during the acquisition negotiations, though always through lawyers and intermediaries. Maya Grant was a legend in Silicon Valley, known for building one of the most successful venture capital firms on the West Coast, while maintaining a reputation for fair dealing and employee loyalty. You're... Jake started, then stopped, his mind racing to process the implications. The person who acquired your company this morning, Maya finished for him. Congratulations, Jake. You're now part of the Teknova family. The hallway seemed to freeze around them. Alex's mouth fell open as he realized what he was hearing. Several nearby investors and entrepreneurs had overheard Maya's introduction and were now staring with obvious curiosity and growing recognition. Jake stood motionless for several seconds, his presentation confidence evaporating as the reality of the situation sank in. E-Block Cloud Sync? This morning, Maya confirmed. The paperwork was finalized about an hour ago. I thought it might be interesting to hear your vision for the company before we discussed how it fits into Teknova's broader strategy. But... Jake struggled to find words. We weren't looking to sell. We had expansion plans, new product development, international markets, all of which remain viable under Teknova's ownership, Maya assured him. We didn't acquire CloudSync to shut it down. We acquired it because we believe in what you've built and want to help you scale it beyond what would be possible as an independent startup. The crowd in the hallway was growing as word of the revelation spread. Maya could see phones being pulled out, social media posts being composed, and whispered conversations starting among people who realized they were witnessing a significant moment in Silicon Valley history. David Chen from Pacific Ventures approached the group with obvious curiosity. Maya, I didn't know you were interested in CloudSync. We've been negotiating for several months, Maya replied diplomatically. Jake and his team have built something remarkable. We're excited to support their continued growth. Jake was still processing the situation, his emotions cycling between shock, confusion, and something that might have been relief. Why didn't you tell me you were here? Why sit in the hallway? Maya's expression hardened slightly. I tried to attend your presentation, but I was informed that it was invite only and I wasn't on the appropriate list. The registration assistant who had turned Maya away earlier was now standing nearby, her face pale as she began to understand the magnitude of her mistake. The security guard who had asked Maya to move along was conspicuously absent, though Maya suspected he would be hearing about this incident very soon. Jake shook his head with disgust. That's completely unacceptable. I'm so sorry. It's not your fault, Maya said calmly. Unfortunately, it's not an uncommon experience. The important thing is that we're here now, and we have an opportunity to build something extraordinary together. Alex finally found his voice. What does this mean for our employees? For the company culture we've worked so hard to create? Maya had anticipated this question and had prepared her answer carefully. Teknova's success is built on preserving what makes acquired companies special while providing resources for exponential growth. Your team will remain intact. Your culture will be protected, and your decision-making autonomy will be respected within reasonable parameters. End quote. Reasonable parameters? Jake asked, his business instincts kicking in despite his continued shock. You'll report to me directly, Maya explained. Major strategic decisions will require approval, but day-to-day operations will remain under your control. We'll provide additional funding for expansion, access to Teknova's network of partners and customers, and support systems that will allow you to focus on innovation rather than administrative overhead. End quote. The conversation was drawing even more attention as conference attendees realized they were witnessing a major acquisition announcement in real time. Maya could see reporters beginning to gather, their phones recording every word for later publication. We should continue this discussion in private, Maya suggested, recognizing that the hallway of a venture conference wasn't the ideal location for sensitive business negotiations. Jake nodded, still looking somewhat dazed. Yes, of course. Alex, we need to call an emergency team meeting. Already on it, Alex replied, his fingers flying across his phone screen as he sent messages to CloudSync's key employees. Maya handed Jake her business card, though the gesture seemed almost comical given the circumstances. My office, 2 o'clock. We'll discuss the transition timeline and answer any questions you and your team might have. Maya? David Chen interrupted. Does this mean CloudSync is off the market for other investors? It means CloudSync is now part of Teknova's portfolio, Maya replied with a slight smile. If you're interested in partnership opportunities, you know where to find me. The crowd was growing larger and more animated as news of the acquisition spread through the conference. Maya could see the conference organizers approaching, likely wanting to capitalize on the unexpected drama for their own publicity purposes. "Jake," she said quietly, "you might want to prepare a statement for the press. This story is going to be everywhere by this afternoon." Jake ran his hands through his hair, a gesture Maya recognized as his response to stress. "I can't believe this is happening. 3 hours ago I was worried about getting enough funding to hire 2 new developers. Now you have the resources to hire 20, Maya pointed out. Sometimes the best opportunities come when we least expect them. But why Cloud Sync? Jake asked. There are dozens of cloud storage companies. What made you choose us? Maya had been waiting for this question and had prepared a detailed answer during her months of due diligence. 3 reasons. First, your technology is genuinely innovative. The predictive algorithms you've developed are at least 2 years ahead of your competitors. Second, your company culture prioritizes customer service and employee satisfaction, values that align with Technova's philosophy. Third, your leadership team has demonstrated the ability to execute complex, projects under resource constraints, which suggests you'll excel with proper funding and support. Jake seemed to relax slightly as he processed Maya's reasoning. You really did your homework. I don't make $100 million investments based on PowerPoint presentations, Maya replied. We've been monitoring CloudSync's performance for 8 months, analyzing your customer retention rates, employee satisfaction surveys, and competitive positioning. This acquisition is based on data, not impulse. Alex had finished sending messages and rejoined the conversation. Our team is going to freak out. Half of them have never worked for a large corporation. Maya understood his concern. She'd acquired 17 companies during her tenure at Technova, and employee anxiety was always the biggest challenge during transitions. That's exactly why we maintain acquired companies as semi-autonomous subsidiaries. Your team will continue working together, in the same office, on the same projects. The main difference will be better benefits and more resources. What about our current projects? Jake asked. We have commitments to existing customers and development timelines for new features. All existing commitments will be honored, Maya assured him. Technova's reputation depends on reliability and trust. We won't jeopardize that by abandoning your customers or breaking your promises. The conference organizers had finally reached their group, led by a woman in an expensive red dress who was clearly trying to assess the publicity potential of the situation. Ms. Grant, Mr. Rodriguez, would you be willing to make a brief announcement from the main stage? This is exactly the kind of innovation story our attendees love to hear. Maya glanced at Jake, who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else in the world. I think we need some time to process this development before making public statements. Of course, the organizer replied, though her disappointment was obvious. Perhaps later this afternoon? We'll see, Maya said diplomatically, knowing that Jake would need several hours to absorb the reality of his new situation before facing a crowd of reporters and competitors. The hallway was becoming increasingly crowded as word spread throughout the conference. Maya could see people pointing and whispering, their phones capturing photos and videos that would likely appear on social media within minutes. We should probably leave separately, Maya suggested. You'll want to brief your team before they hear about this through industry gossip. Jake nodded gratefully. Thank you for understanding. This is all happening very fast. Change usually does, Maya replied. The key is maintaining focus on what matters most. Your technology, your customers, and your people. As Maya prepared to leave, she noticed the registration assistant who had turned her away earlier hovering nearby with obvious anxiety. The young woman approached hesitantly, her earlier confidence completely gone. Ms. Grant, she said quietly, I want to apologize for earlier. I didn't realize. Maya held up a hand to stop her. You were following instructions. The problem isn't with individual employees, it's with systems that create unnecessary barriers. The assistant looked relieved, but still worried about potential consequences. Maya understood that the young woman was probably scared about losing her job over the incident. However, Maya continued, this conference might benefit from reviewing its registration procedures to ensure they're truly inclusive. With that diplomatic suggestion, Maya excused herself from the increasingly chaotic scene. She walked to the hotel lobby with measured steps, ignoring the stares and whispered conversations that followed in her wake. Outside the Fairmont, Maya's driver was waiting with her black Tesla Model S. She settled into the leather seats and immediately called Jennifer to prepare for the afternoon meeting with Jake and his team. "How did it go?" Jennifer asked. "Better than expected," Maya replied, watching San Francisco's skyline through the car window. "Jake Rodriguez is exactly what we hoped for, intelligent, passionate, and genuinely committed to his company's mission. And the conference?" Maya smiled slightly. "Let's just say it was educational. Make sure conference room A is set up for the 2 o'clock meeting. We'll need presentation equipment and refreshments for about 8 people. Already arranged." Jennifer confirmed. "The integration team is standing by, and legal has prepared the standard acquisition welcome packet." The drive back to Technova's headquarters gave Maya time to reflect on the morning's events. The incident at the conference registration desk had been frustrating but not surprising. She had learned long ago that success didn't automatically eliminate discrimination. It just changed the context in which it occurred. What mattered more was Jake's response to discovering her identity. His immediate embarrassment and anger at her treatment suggested a leader with strong moral principles, someone who would fit well within Technova's corporate culture. Back at her office, Maya spent the next 2 hours reviewing CloudSync's employee files and organizational structure. She wanted to be prepared for any questions Jake's team might raise about job security, reporting relationships, or changes to their current projects. At exactly 2 o'clock, Jake Rodriguez and 7 members of his leadership team arrived at Technova's offices. Maya could see the awe in their expressions as they walked through the modern workspace, with its floor-to-ceiling windows, collaborative work areas, and state-of-the-art technology infrastructure. Jake looked more composed than he had at the conference, though Maya could detect underlying tension in his posture and voice. He had clearly spent the intervening hours briefing his team and preparing for this crucial meeting. "Thank you for accommodating us on such short notice," Jake said as the group settled around the conference table. Maya distributed welcome packets to each team member, comprehensive documents that outlined Technova's corporate structure, employee benefits, and integration procedures. "I want to address your concerns directly and honestly. This acquisition is happening quickly, but it's not happening carelessly." She spent the next hour walking through Technova's track record with previous acquisitions, showing how acquired companies had maintained their identity while benefiting from increased resources and market access. She provided specific examples of successful integrations, including employee testimonials and performance metrics that demonstrated positive outcomes. Jake's CTO, Alex Kim, raised his hand during the presentation. "What happens to our equity positions? Many of our employees took reduced salaries in exchange for stock options." Maya had anticipated this question and had prepared a detailed response. "All existing equity will be converted to Technova stock at favorable rates. Additionally, we're implementing a retention bonus program to ensure key employees are rewarded for their contributions to CloudSync's success." The team's tension began to ease as Maya addressed their concerns with specific answers rather than vague reassurances. She could see relief spreading across their faces as they realized this acquisition was designed to enhance their opportunities rather than eliminate them. "When did the changes take effect?" asked Sarah Chen, CloudSync's head of product development. "Immediately for legal and financial purposes," Maya explained. "Practically, we'll implement changes gradually over the next 6 weeks to minimize disruption. Your current projects will continue unchanged, and any new initiatives will be discussed collaboratively." Jake had been mostly quiet during the presentation, absorbing information and gauging his team's reactions. Finally, he spoke up with the question Maya had been expecting. "Why the secrecy? Why acquire us through intermediaries instead of approaching us directly?" Maya leaned back in her chair, considering how much to reveal about her strategic thinking. "Several reasons. First, Direct approaches often inflate valuations and create bidding wars that benefit no one except lawyers. Second, we wanted to observe CloudSync's performance under normal conditions, not when you were trying to impress potential acquirers. Third, the technology sector has a tendency to overreact to merger rumors, which can destabilize companies and damage employee morale. And fourth? Jake asked, sensing there was more to the explanation. Maya smiled slightly. Fourth, I wanted to see how you handled success and pressure without knowing you were being evaluated. Your presentation this morning confirmed that you have the leadership qualities we value: integrity, passion, and genuine care for your employees and customers. Alex looked confused. But you weren't even in the room for the presentation. No, Maya agreed. But I was close enough to hear everything. And more importantly, I watched how Jake interacted with investors and colleagues afterward. Leadership isn't just about giving good presentations. It's about treating people with respect and maintaining your principles under pressure." End quote. The comments seemed to resonate with Jake's team, several of whom nodded in recognition of their founder's character. Maya could see the group dynamics shifting from anxiety to cautious optimism. "What's next?" Jake asked. Maya opened her laptop and projected a timeline onto the conference room screen. Integration begins Monday with HR meetings to process benefit transfers and updated employment agreements. Your current office lease will be maintained, but will also provide access to Technova's facilities for any teams that want to collaborate directly with our other subsidiaries. Budget approvals will be streamlined, and you'll have access to our procurement and vendor relationships. "Sounds almost too good to be true," Sarah commented. "It's not altruism," Maya replied honestly. "Technova succeeds when our acquired companies exceed their potential. We're investing in CloudSync's growth because we believe it will generate significant returns for everyone involved." The meeting continued for another hour, covering technical details about software integration, customer communication strategies, and reporting procedures. Maya was impressed by the quality of questions Jake's team asked, demonstrating both intelligence and genuine concern for maintaining CloudSync's standards. As the meeting concluded, Jake remained behind while his team returned to their office to brief the remaining employees. "I owe you an apology," he said once they were alone. "For what?" "For what happened at the conference. You shouldn't have been excluded from any session, especially not one where I was presenting to potential partners about the company you had just acquired." Maya appreciated his sincerity, but wanted to put the incident in proper perspective. "Jake, you weren't responsible for the conference's registration policies or the assumptions people made about who belonged in that room. What matters is how you responded when you learned what happened." "Still," Jake insisted, "it's not right. You've built one of the most successful companies in Silicon Valley, and you were treated like you didn't belong there." "Unfortunately, it's not an uncommon experience," Maya said calmly. "The tech industry has made progress on diversity and inclusion, but we still have work to do. The difference is that now I have the resources and platform to influence change rather than just endure discrimination." Jake seemed to consider this perspective carefully. "Is that part of why you acquired CloudSync? To support diversity in the tech sector?" Maya shook her head. "I acquired CloudSync because it's a brilliant company with innovative technology and strong leadership. Your personal background and values certainly align with Technova's principles, but business decisions have to be based on business fundamentals." End quote. "Fair enough," Jake agreed. "So what happens now? Do I report to you directly, or is there a management layer between us?" "Direct reports," Maya confirmed. "You'll attend monthly executive meetings with other subsidiary leaders, and we'll have weekly check-ins during the integration period. After that, we can adjust the frequency based on what works best for both of us." Jake seemed relieved by the prospect of maintaining a direct relationship with Technova's leadership. "I have to admit, this morning I was worried about losing control of the company I spent 3 years building." "That's a natural concern," Maya acknowledged. "But consider this. You'll still be running CloudSync. You'll just have more resources to do it effectively. Instead of worrying about payroll or office rent, you can focus on product development and customer service." When you put it that way, it sounds liberating. Maya stood up and walked to the window overlooking San Francisco Bay. The afternoon sun was breaking through the fog, revealing the water's surface in brilliant blue patches. Jake, you built something remarkable with limited resources. Imagine what you can accomplish with unlimited resources. Jake joined her at the window, looking out at the city where both of their companies had been born. It's going to take some getting used to. Change always does, Maya replied. But the best leaders adapt quickly and find ways to turn change into opportunity. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, both processing the magnitude of the day's events. Maya was thinking about the integration challenges ahead, while Jake was probably imagining the possibilities that Technova's resources would create for CloudSync's future. Maya, Jake said finally, can I ask you something personal? Of course. Of course. How do you handle it? The discrimination, the assumptions, the constant need to prove yourself in rooms where other people are automatically accepted? Maya had been asked this question many times throughout her career, usually by young women or minorities who were navigating similar challenges. Her answer had evolved over the years as her perspective matured and her position strengthened. Early in my career, I fought every battle, she said. I corrected every assumption, challenged every slight, and exhausted myself trying to change minds one person at a time. It was necessary then, because I was building credibility and establishing my reputation. And now? Now I choose my battles more strategically. Sometimes I address discrimination directly, especially when it affects other people or sets dangerous precedents. Sometimes I let my success speak for itself, and sometimes, like this morning, I turn the situation into an opportunity. Jake looked confused. How was this morning an opportunity? Maya smiled, remembering the shocked expressions on people's faces when she revealed her identity. Think about it. By tomorrow, everyone at that conference will know that Maya Grant was excluded from a CEO session and then revealed that she had acquired the company whose founder was presenting. That story will be told and retold throughout Silicon Valley, probably for years. Creating awareness about bias in the industry. Exactly. Sometimes the most powerful statement you can make is simply succeeding despite the obstacles people put in your way. Jake nodded thoughtfully. That's a pretty sophisticated approach to dealing with prejudice. It comes with experience and position, Maya acknowledged. When you're starting out, you don't always have the luxury of choosing your battles, but as you build influence and resources, you can be more strategic about creating change. Their conversation was interrupted by Maya's assistant, who knocked softly before entering the conference room. I'm sorry to interrupt, but there are 3 reporters in the lobby asking about the CloudSync acquisition. Maya sighed. Word travels fast in this industry. Should I tell them you're not available? Jennifer asked. Maya considered the options. She could avoid the press and let speculation build, or she could control the narrative by providing a carefully crafted statement. Set up a brief press conference for 4 o'clock. Conference Room B. Standard acquisition announcement format. I'll prepare the press release, Jennifer confirmed, making notes on her tablet. After Jennifer left, Jake looked nervous about the prospect of facing reporters. I've never done a press conference before. It's straightforward, Maya assured him. We'll announce the acquisition, highlight CloudSync's achievements, explain how the partnership benefits both companies, and take a few questions. The key is staying on message and not speculating about future plans that haven't been finalized. What if they ask about what happened at the conference this morning? Maya had been expecting this concern. If asked, we'll acknowledge that there was a registration error that prevented me from attending your presentation initially. We'll focus on the positive aspects of the acquisition rather than dwelling on administrative mistakes. Jake seemed relieved by her diplomatic approach. You really have thought of everything. It's part of the job, Maya replied. Managing communications and controlling narratives is essential when you're running a public company. The press conference went smoothly, with Maya and Jake presenting a united front about CloudSync's future within the Technova family. The reporters asked predictable questions about valuation, integration timelines, and strategic objectives. Only one journalist inquired about the conference incident, and Maya handled it with professional grace. There was a registration error that initially prevented me from attending Mr. Rodriguez's presentation, she explained. However, these administrative issues are far less important than the substantial business opportunity we're announcing today. After the reporters left, Jake seemed more relaxed about his new role as a Teknova subsidiary leader. That wasn't as bad as I expected. Media relations become easier with practice, Maya said. You'll probably be doing more interviews as CloudSync's profile increases under Teknova's ownership. As the day wound down, Maya found herself reflecting on the unusual circumstances that had brought CloudSync into Teknova's portfolio. The conference incident had been frustrating, but it had also created a memorable story that would likely generate positive publicity for both companies. Jake's reaction to learning about the acquisition had confirmed Maya's assessment of his character and leadership potential. His immediate concern for his employees, his thoughtful questions about integration procedures, and his genuine embarrassment about the conference incident all suggested someone who would thrive within Teknova's corporate culture. The acquisition itself represented more than just adding another company to Teknova's portfolio. CloudSync's technology would enhance their existing cloud services offerings, while Jake's leadership style would bring fresh perspectives to Teknova's executive team. Over the following weeks, the integration proceeded more smoothly than Maya had anticipated. Jake proved to be an exceptional communicator, keeping his team informed about changes while maintaining their focus on current projects. His employees adapted quickly to Teknova's systems and resources, and several expressed excitement about opportunities to collaborate with other subsidiaries. The industry response to the acquisition was overwhelmingly positive. Technology blogs praised Teknova's strategic vision, while business publications highlighted the deal as an example of successful minority leadership in Silicon Valley. The conference incident, rather than becoming a source of embarrassment, had evolved into a powerful narrative about perseverance and success in the face of systemic barriers. 3 weeks after the acquisition, Maya received an unexpected call from the Northern California Venture Conference organizers. The woman in the red dress who had approached her and Jake in the hotel hallway was requesting a meeting to discuss keynote speaking opportunities for the following year's event. "Ms. Grant," the organizer said during their phone conversation, "we'd be honored to have you deliver our opening keynote next year. Your story has resonated throughout the tech community, and we believe your perspective on leadership and innovation would be incredibly valuable for CRAS." Our attendees. Maya was amused by the irony, but recognized the genuine opportunity to influence industry conversations about inclusion and bias. "I'd be interested in discussing that possibility," she replied. "Perhaps we could also explore ways to make your conference more accessible to diverse participants." "Absolutely," the organizer agreed enthusiastically. "We're already reviewing our registration procedures and selection criteria based on feedback from this year's event." After ending the call, Maya realized that the conference incident had created ripple effects throughout Silicon Valley's venture capital community. Several other conference organizers had reached out with speaking invitations, while business schools were requesting guest lectures about strategic acquisitions and corporate leadership. Jake had experienced his own surge in visibility, with multiple interview requests from technology publications wanting to understand his perspective on being acquired by one of the industry's most successful firms. He handled the attention with characteristic thoughtfulness, using media opportunities to highlight his team's contributions and CloudSync's commitment to customer service. "I never expected to become a poster child for successful acquisitions," Jake told Maya during one of their weekly check-ins. "But I'm trying to use the platform responsibly." "You're doing exactly what good leaders do," Maya replied. "Using success to create opportunities for others and advancing conversations that matter." CloudSync's performance under Teknova's ownership exceeded even Maya's optimistic projections. With access to additional funding and resources, Jake's team had accelerated their development timeline and expanded their customer base by 40% in just 2 months. Several enterprise clients who had been hesitant to work with a small startup were now eager to partner with a Teknova subsidiary. The predictive algorithms that had originally attracted Maya's attention were proving even more valuable than anticipated. Teknova's other subsidiaries were beginning to integrate CloudSync's technology into their own products, creating synergies that benefited the entire corporate family. Maya found herself using the CloudSync acquisition as a case study in her presentations to other entrepreneurs and investors. The story had multiple layers that resonated with different audiences: strategic vision, successful integration, overcoming bias, and the importance of character in leadership decisions. During a presentation to the Bay Area Venture Capital Association, Maya explained her approach to evaluating acquisition targets. Technical innovation is obviously crucial, she told the audience of investors and entrepreneurs, but cultural fit and leadership quality are equally important. You can fix technology problems, but you can't fix character flaws. The CloudSync story became a recruiting tool for Technova as well. Prospective employees and acquisition targets saw how Maya had preserved CloudSync's culture while providing growth opportunities. The narrative demonstrated that joining Technova meant gaining resources without losing identity. 6 months after the acquisition, Maya invited Jake to co-present at a Stanford Business School seminar on strategic partnerships. Standing before a lecture hall filled with MBA students, they told the story of their unlikely meeting and successful collaboration. The lesson here isn't about specific business tactics, Maya explained to the students. It's about maintaining your principles and being prepared for opportunities, even when they come in unexpected forms. Jake added his perspective about adapting to change while preserving core values. When Maya acquired CloudSync, I was terrified that we'd lose everything that made our company special. Instead, we discovered that having more resources allowed us to better express our values and serve our customers. During the question and answer session, a student asked about the conference incident and its impact on their business relationship. Maya and Jake exchanged glances before Maya responded. That incident revealed character on both sides, she said. It showed me that Jake was someone who would stand up for principles of fairness and inclusion. It showed him that I was someone who could handle adversity with grace, and turn challenges into opportunities. Those are the kinds of qualities that make business partnerships successful." End quote. The student follow-up question was directed at Jake. Were you embarrassed that your new boss had been excluded from your presentation? Jake's answer was immediate and heartfelt. I was embarrassed that anyone had been excluded from a professional event based on assumptions about who belongs in rooms with other successful people. Maya's identity as CloudSync's new owner made the incident more ironic, but it would have been wrong regardless of who was affected. End quote. After the seminar, Maya and Jake walked across Stanford's campus together, discussing the questions students had raised and reflecting on how much had changed since their first meeting in the Fairmont's hallway. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you had been allowed into that presentation? Jake asked. Maya considered the question carefully. The business outcome would have been the same, she said. We would have announced the acquisition, integrated the companies, and achieved the same results, but the story would have been completely different. How so? The exclusion incident created a narrative that resonated far beyond our two companies, Maya explained. It sparked conversations about bias, inclusion, and assumption-making throughout the tech industry. Sometimes the obstacles we face become opportunities to create broader change. Jake nodded thoughtfully. It's strange to think that a registration desk mistake became a catalyst for industry-wide conversations about diversity and access. That's often how change happens, Maya replied. Not through grand gestures or formal programs, but through individual moments that reveal systemic issues and inspire people to do better. As they reached the parking lot where their cars were waiting, Jake turned to Maya with a question that had clearly been on his mind. What's next for CloudSync? We've exceeded all the integration milestones, and our growth trajectory is incredible. Where do we go from here? Maya smiled, recognizing the ambition and vision that had originally attracted her to CloudSync. That's exactly the right question for a successful CEO to be asking. What are your thoughts? International expansion, Jake said immediately. We've had inquiries from companies in 12 countries, but we haven't had the infrastructure to support global operations. With Technova's resources, we could establish regional offices and local partnerships. Interesting, Maya replied. What else? Product diversification. Our core algorithm could be adapted for industries beyond cloud storage, financial services, healthcare data management. supply chain optimization. We could create an entirely new revenue stream while leveraging our existing intellectual property." End quote. Maya was impressed by Jake's strategic thinking and pleased to see him embracing the possibilities that Teknova's resources created. Both ideas have merit. Draft detailed proposals for each initiative, including market analysis, resource requirements, and projected returns. We'll present them to the board next month. Jake's excitement was evident as he contemplated the scope of what was now possible for his company. "A year ago, I was worried about making payroll. Now we're talking about global expansion and new product lines. That's what successful acquisitions should accomplish," Maya said. "They should multiply possibilities rather than limit them." As they prepared to leave, Maya reflected on the unexpected journey that had brought them together. A simple registration error had evolved into a powerful story about resilience, success, and the importance of character in business relationships. The CloudSync acquisition had become one of Teknova's most successful deals, both financially and strategically. But more importantly, it had created a narrative that was inspiring other entrepreneurs and investors to think differently about inclusion, assumption-making, and the value of diverse perspectives in business leadership. Jake's success as a Teknova subsidiary leader was attracting attention from other minority entrepreneurs who saw his story as proof that acquisition didn't necessarily mean loss of autonomy or identity. Maya was fielding inquiries from several promising companies whose founders specifically mentioned the CloudSync integration as a reason for their interest in joining Teknova's portfolio. The conference organizers who had initially excluded Maya were now using her story as an example of the innovation and leadership their events were designed to celebrate. The irony wasn't lost on Maya, but she chose to view it as progress rather than hypocrisy. During a recent interview for Forbes magazine, Maya was asked about the broader implications of the CloudSync story. "What message do you hope people take from this experience?" the reporter had inquired. Maya's response reflected the wisdom she had gained from decades of navigating challenges and opportunities in Silicon Valley. "Success isn't just about individual achievement," she said. "It's about creating opportunities for others and using your platform to address systemic issues that prevent talented people from reaching their potential." The interviewer pressed for more specific advice for entrepreneurs facing similar challenges. "What would you tell a young person who feels excluded from important opportunities because of their background or identity?" "Three things," Maya replied. "First, never let other people's limitations define your possibilities. Second, use every setback as motivation to succeed at a level that makes their assumptions irrelevant. Third, when you do achieve success, remember to open doors for others who are facing the same barriers you overcame." End quote. The CloudSync story had become more than just a business case study. It was a parable about perseverance, strategic thinking, and the power of turning obstacles into opportunities. Maya found herself telling the story regularly, not just in business contexts, but also at diversity conferences, women's leadership events, and university commencements. Each telling of the story revealed new facets and lessons. Sometimes the focus was on strategic acquisitions and due diligence processes. Other times, it was about managing organizational change and preserving company culture. But most often, it was about the importance of character, both in recognizing it in others and demonstrating it yourself when facing adversity. Jake had developed his own version of the story, one that emphasized the importance of adapting to change while maintaining core values. His perspective as the acquired founder provided valuable insights for other entrepreneurs who were considering acquisition offers or struggling with growth challenges. Together, Maya and Jake had created a narrative that was reshaping conversations throughout Silicon Valley about leadership, inclusion, and business success. The story that began with an exclusion in a hotel hallway had evolved into a blueprint for building successful, principled companies in an industry that often prioritized growth over values. As Maya sat in her office one evening, reviewing CloudSync's latest performance reports, she realized that the conference incident had been a defining moment, not just for her relationship with Jake, but for her approach to leadership and corporate responsibility. Being excluded from that room had reminded her of the barriers that still existed in her industry, but more importantly, It had reinforced her commitment to using her success to create change. The acquisition of CloudSync had been financially successful, strategically sound, and personally meaningful. But its greatest value might be the story it told about resilience, character, and the unexpected ways that obstacles can become opportunities for greater success. Jake knocked on her office door, interrupting her reflection. "Do you have a minute?" he asked. "I wanted to show you the preliminary numbers for our international expansion proposal." "Of course," Maya replied, closing the performance reports and focusing on the future. "Let's see what you've discovered." As Jake spread his research across her conference table, Maya marveled at how far they had traveled from that awkward moment in the Fairmont's hallway. What had begun as a simple business acquisition had evolved into a partnership that was creating value far beyond financial returns. The numbers Jake presented were impressive, showing significant opportunities in European and Asian markets that aligned perfectly with Teknova's global strategy. His analysis was thorough, and his recommendations were well-reasoned, confirming Maya's assessment of his strategic capabilities. "This is excellent work," Maya said after reviewing the proposals. "You've clearly thought through the challenges, as well as the opportunities." Jake beamed with pride at her assessment. "I learned from watching how you approached the CloudSync acquisition. Thorough research, careful analysis, and strategic patience." Maya smiled at the recognition that their partnership had become a mutual learning experience. Jake was developing skills in strategic planning and corporate management, while she was gaining insights into innovative technology development and startup culture. "There's one more thing," Jake said, pulling out a final document. "I've been working on a proposal for a Teknova diversity initiative, something that would help other minority entrepreneurs navigate the acquisition process and avoid some of the barriers we encountered." Maya examined the proposal with growing excitement. Jake had outlined a comprehensive program that would provide mentorship, resources, and networking opportunities for underrepresented entrepreneurs. The initiative would leverage Teknova's platform and resources to create systemic change rather than just individual success stories. "This is brilliant," Maya said sincerely. "It addresses the root causes of exclusion rather than just the symptoms. I figured we could turn our story into something that helps other people write their own success stories," Jake explained. Maya realized that Jake had internalized the same lesson she had learned over decades in Silicon Valley. True success meant using your achievements to create opportunities for others. His proposal represented the natural evolution of their partnership from business transaction to social impact. "Let's schedule a presentation to the board," Maya said. "This initiative could become a model for the entire industry." As Jake gathered his materials and prepared to leave, Maya reflected on the remarkable journey that had brought them to this moment. A conference registration error had evolved into an acquisition success story, which was now becoming a blueprint for industry-wide change. The story that began with Maya Grant sitting in a hallway, excluded from a room where she belonged, was ending with the creation of systems designed to ensure that future entrepreneurs would never face similar barriers. It was, Maya realized, the perfect demonstration of how obstacles can become opportunities when approached with wisdom, patience, and strategic thinking. The next morning, Maya arrived at her office to find a message from the Northern California Venture Conference organizers. They were requesting a meeting to discuss not just her keynote presentation for the following year, but also her input on redesigning their entire conference structure to be more inclusive and accessible. Maya smiled as she read the message, recognizing another opportunity to create positive change. The story that had begun with exclusion was continuing to generate opportunities for inclusion, one conversation and one policy change at a time. She picked up her phone to call Jake, knowing he would want to be involved in the conference redesign project. Together, they would continue building on the foundation they had created, turning their unexpected partnership into a force for industry-wide transformation. The CloudSync acquisition had succeeded beyond Maya's most optimistic projections, but its greatest achievement wasn't measured in financial returns or market share. Its greatest achievement was the proof it provided that success, character, and social responsibility could work together to create lasting change in an industry that desperately needed better models of leadership and inclusion. As Maya prepared for another day of building the future, She thought about the young entrepreneurs who would benefit from the systems she and Jake were creating. They would face their own challenges and obstacles, but hopefully they would have more support and fewer barriers than previous generations had encountered. The story that began in a hotel hallway with an act of exclusion had become a narrative of empowerment, partnership, and transformation. It was exactly the kind of story Maya hoped would inspire the next generation of leaders to build companies and careers based on both success and service to others. And in conference rooms and startup offices throughout Silicon Valley, that story was already being told and retold, creating ripple effects that would continue long after the specific details of the Cloud Sync acquisition had faded from memory. The lesson would remain that obstacles can become opportunities, that character matters more than credentials, and that true success means using your achievements to open doors for others who are ready to walk through them.